there's a lot of discussion around cybersecurity, but what does it really mean? And the purpose for today is practical discussions for small and medium-sized businesses. So we can really understand, your walk away is, what are those things that are actionable items that you can do to protect? Now here's a stat that you may or may not be aware of. 60% of small businesses that have a major cybersecurity event go out of business within 1 year. And that's staggering. Let me give you a practical example as well. About 5 years ago, I was president of a company, had been brought in, and there were a lot of things to get done. We had to work on some financials, had to work on staffing, culture, all the kind of things. And I went through all the questions with the IT department. Do we have our data backed up properly? Do we have the firewalls in place? Do we have the standard type questions that occur with cyber? And my answers were yes. Okay, so I moved on to the other areas rapidly. Well, about 2 months in, I get a phone call, and our phones are lighting up. I get to the office, all the IT staff, their faces are pale, and they said, we've been hit with a major ransomware attack, and all servers are impacted. Laptops, desktops, servers to run their business. That business ceased to exist that day. They didn't even have backups, if you can believe that, of their technology. When I asked him about the backups, because he had told me before they had had it, right? Well, those backups, they had plugged up hard drives directly to the servers, which is a no-no, and the ransomware attack got them as well. So imagine sitting down with your family and your staff and say, we are out of business. That was the warning that I had. Fortunately, in that case, I knew someone from the outside, comparable to these gentlemen we have here. Not quite as good though, so kudos for that. And it was truly an act of God. There was one directory on one server that was not affected, and by chance someone was making copies of all their databases. Nobody had any idea that was going on. And we were able to save the company. But this fact of 60% failing, we've seen it, ourselves. So again, we want you to walk away. If you don't mind, business owners or somebody representing business, just raise your hand so we know who all in the room you speak to. Awesome, thank you. So gentlemen, why don't you come on up, and then we'll start getting going with some introductions. So we've structured today around 4 separate themes: threats, infrastructure, resilience, compliance, and also governance. Each of these panelists are experts in their field, but what's interesting is they also work well together, and they work on projects together, because there's a lot of different aspects of cyber to be aware of. If you have someone that tells you they are the expert and they know everything, be very careful of that someone. Okay, it takes a team, and these guys are absolutely fantastic as a team. So we're going to do a couple of things real quick. We want to do some introductions and get going. We have set aside quite a bit of time toward the end for Q&A. So if you would hold questions until then, unless you just catch Hamlet and go ahead and ask anyway. So we also have information about each one toward the end as well. If you want to pull out your cell phone at that time and take some pictures and have some conversations. So Rick, why don't you open us up and tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're doing while you're here.
Sure. Good morning. Rick Handling. I'm out of Round Rock, just north of Austin. And I'm a cybersecurity strategist with more than 30 years in cybersecurity, most of which were working for two different large multinationals here in Houston. And now I work with entrepreneurs, so think solo through 20, maybe 30 employees, who tend to backburner cybersecurity because they think it takes too much time, money, and effort. But the risk is high, as well as the stakes. And it's possible to get peace of mind at a reasonable cost with the right approach. So that's what I do. Now, if you want to compare and contrast me to these guys, I'm going to use a medical analogy. So I'm not a trauma surgeon. I'm not a guy who puts everything back together after you have a huge accident. I'm also not an executive health association that's going to give you all the testing and the longevity protocol. I'm more of a medical or a wellness coach with a twist. Because you want to keep eating the donuts without any health impact, right? So I'm the guy that lets you click on the links that you need to click on and open the PDFs that your employees need to open without worrying if you're going to lose $10,000 or your reputation doing so. Now, one of the things Rich wanted us to cover is what we see the biggest mistake being made in our realm. And what I see the biggest mistake that entrepreneurs are making is thinking that they're too small to be a target.
CP.
Hi everyone, I'm CB Rao. My company is Lotus Tech Pros. We're based in Houston. I've been in the IT space for about 35 years. We never thought about cybersecurity as a separate thing. Cybersecurity has always been part of what we do, but of course now it's a very hot topic. So the work we do is a very preventative approach. So we manage all the IT for a business, including the computers, the data, the network, and all of that. But being very preventative, we have made sure that our clients have never had a cybersecurity incident ever. But the big mistake that people make in the business space is neglecting maintenance. Technology, it does need to be maintained, it needs to be monitored, it needs to be taken care of. And I work with, we work together quite a bit on plans together. And what he mentioned about making safe, keeping your links, opening documents and stuff safe so that you can do your business and have the peace of mind is really what our goal is, and that's what we do.
I don't think his microphone is working.
Go ahead, Jason.
Hey everybody, my name is Jason Rory, currently the founder and CEO of TriInfoSec. I've also spent about the past 30 years in IT and cybersecurity, starting the days in the US Navy. I spent most of my time in IT and security engineering and architecture. I started an IT services company here in Houston in 2006. Built that company up over the next 17 years. I sold it, made my exit in 2023 and moved into cybersecurity compliance. I wanted to tell just a quick story to kind of piggyback off of what Rich was saying and how important it is for small businesses to understand the digital risk, and I know we'll talk a lot more about that as we go through. But I saw a very similar scenario with a much worse outcome. I was got pulled into a post-ransomware scenario where unfortunately this company had a very subpar managed IT infrastructure where the servers, the firewalls were very vulnerable. The attackers were able to break in, encrypt the servers, causing the data loss, was able to delete the backups on their way out, put them in a very horrible situation. And it was a small company. They were doing probably around $3 million in top line revenue, but it was still a sizable company. The owner had worked hard to build that. And so when I got pulled into it, I was asking questions about recoverability, and one of the first questions, since we realized there's no data, there's no backups, I asked about cybersecurity insurance. She didn't have it. She didn't know what it was never advised on it. So she was left with really the understanding of you might be able to negotiate with the bad actors to get the decryption key, but everything that you would spend would be out of pocket since you have no insurance. She didn't have any type cash on that level, so she closed her doors, after 20 years in business. So it was, it's a bad story, and I tell that story, to educate small business owners that your business is not too small to worry about these things. If your business relies on the data that you hold, and that is your livelihood, it's important to you, and these bad guys know that. And so they don't discriminate, so I think we'll talk more about that.
Well, Lee?
Hello. So I'm Phil Flichy. I'm the founder and principal at Cyber. So consider this. David, the CEO of a $70 million distribution company, wasn't concerned about cyber threats. He told regularly to his CFO, we're too small, no big deal. Life proved him wrong, kind of the same story that you just heard. So that's the single biggest mistake a leader can do, denial. That's the hard truth. You're never too small to be targeted, you're too small to make the news, and worst, to recover from the attack. As you heard from Rich, 60% of small businesses fall within 6 months. Actually, my statistics, 6 months, not a year. We have to compare that. So your business runs on software as surely as it runs on electricity. Most leaders discover the weak points when the light goes off. At Cyber, we bring Fortune 500 security leadership to your budget before the crisis. Think of us as conductors. We don't replace your team. We get your existing players, people, process, and technology playing in perfect harmony and synchronization. It's not about buying more stuff. It's about being smarter and proportionate in your strategy. First, we map what in our profession we call the crown jewels, the data and systems that must never fail. Then we build a tailored plan to keep them safe and your business running. With Cyber, you establish clear governance decisions and a rehearsed response plan. We guide you from denial to confidence, making sure growth and multiples you're working on aren't left to chance.
Thank you. Okay, now that we've met our panelists, let's go ahead and get started and get into a little bit further of the details. So Rick, let's start with you. So you said that business email compromise and session hijacking are quietly costing small businesses millions, typically about $10,000 at a time. So why are they especially vulnerable, and what do you mean by hacker-friendly defaults?
Well, I'll start by answering that question with a story about business email compromise, so we can level the playing field and you'll understand what we're talking about. So you get an email from Joe at companyxyz.com, and you know Joe well. He's a colleague that you do a lot of business with. And it says company announcement, and the attachment is from companyxyz.pdf. And you think, okay, it looks a little off, so you send him a separate email and you say, hey, is this something that I should be, did you send this? And you get a reply back, yeah, I sent it as a company announcement, read it when you get a chance. So you open it, there's nothing in there, but nothing happens. You're busy, so you forget about it, and you go on and do other things and never get back to Joe. 2 weeks later, you get a call from another client, and they say, hey, did you really want me to change the routing number and account code for the invoice that you sent last month? And okay, that's kind of a wake-up call. So how did this happen? So what happens when you open up the PDF is that it runs some JavaScript. Now JavaScript is kind of what makes the internet run under the covers these days, or your browser at least. It opens that up, and it uses something on your browser that are called the developer tools. It's installed on every browser. It doesn't look like malware, so you never get an indication of that. You don't see any of this. And what it does is it copies a special kind of cookie. It's an authentication token. And it sends it over to your favorite hacker over North Korea. And this guy now puts it in his browser, and guess what? He's you. He's got access to everything that you do. Your email, your OneDrive, your SharePoint, your Teams, or if you're in Google Workspace, your Drive, and everything else. So they sit there, root around, find out how to monetize you, and that's the result. So I got a call on July 3rd in the evening from Jason referring to me, a solopreneur, okay, so not too small, right? In Dallas, who had an $8,000 invoice that a client had called him about. This is exactly the kind of thing that happens. He was fortunate and lucky that person called him. But what this leads to is what those hacker-friendly defaults that I mentioned. And hacker-friendly defaults exist in a lot of places. They exist in your laptop. They exist in your devices at home. But I'm not going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about them in the context of your cloud accounts. So what a hacker-friendly default in this case is when you get your Microsoft 365 or Google Workspace account, that shiny new account, it comes with something at no extra cost, these hacker-friendly defaults. And one of them is that when you log in Microsoft, by default, it's good for 90 days. So that if somebody gets this authentication token from you, they can root around in your stuff and be you and do whatever they want to do for up to 90 days if they're quiet and careful and run low and quiet. In Google, it's even worse because the minimum amount of time is 6 months that authentication token is good for. Now, since we're talking about cloud, because that's where businesses live and work these days, particularly small businesses. Another example is around QuickBooks Online. So if you don't carefully protect your account, it's possible for somebody to take it over quite easily. And if you have payroll authorization, they can create an employee and pay themselves. I've seen that happen as well. That's just a quick intro to that.
All right,
Now,
30 seconds.
Well.
Gotta keep us on timer, you know these
No,
IT
these
guys,
other,
man.
okay, anyway. So the July 3rd, there's some significance to July 3rd. It was the day before a holiday. And what's coming up? The holidays. It's when you're distracted, you're not paying attention, you're getting hit by phishing messages from everywhere. You know, buy this now. Your account's been closed, things like that. So the 3 things that you should be doing to reduce risk is address those hacker-friendly defaults, get a password manager, it's gonna make your life easier, and get a ransomware-resistant backup. So my question for you is it going to take an $8,000 hit and a cost to your reputation for you to make a change? So if you want to move the needle quickly, just reach out to me. My LinkedIn is up there. You could get a business card for me, and we can talk.
All right, hold on for a second. Now you're on the hot
Oh, yeah.
seat. Okay, so we know, Rick, you're a fan of Atomic Habits, the book, if people weren't aware of. What's the simplest habit someone can walk away with today to reduce the risk of this business email compromise? 30 seconds.
Okay. So every Friday afternoon, at the end of the day, you go to, if you're a Microsoft person, you go to myaccount.microsoft.com and sign out of all the devices. a little inconvenient because you can sign right back in, but what that does is it not only signs you out of your phone and your tablets and everything else, but it also signs out anybody that may have compromised your account. You can do something similar for Google Workspace. It just takes a little more effort, and I've got instructions and a QR code on the back of my card for that.
Okay, so CV, when these type of attacks succeed, do you see poor infrastructure creating even further damage?
Yeah, earlier I mentioned our maintenance. Part of maintenance is also keeping the technology current and up to date. One of the things that happens with manufacturers is that they want to sell you new things. So they start supporting and maintaining and are offering support and updates and fixes for the older product. So we see that if you have, like your old Wi-Fi network, your old printer, or desk phone that's IP, that's something like that, and nobody's bothered to update the firmware on there, and nobody's bothered to maybe even replace it because it's too obsolete. Those are vectors that for the bad actors to come in and get into the compromise situation.
Okay, Philippe, last question in this section, you got 30 seconds. What's the governance risk that for an owner if something like this happens?
Well, on top of course, losing money and sensitive data, you can actually be, it's a governance failure. So you can actually be personally accountable by your clients, your insurers, or even your board for not having implemented basic elements of risk management. And such as verification steps, dual approval, training of your people, and what started as an employee made a mistake can end up being, you didn't protect the business, and now I'm going to sue you. So check my book I created recently, Outsmarting Business Email Compromise. I wrote that book because a friend of mine from a former life in a large company lost $200,000.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to move on. Resilience in infrastructure. So CV, so you work at the intersection of disaster prevention and disaster readiness. So many owners don't consider both. How do their infrastructure choices protect them? 5 minutes.
So, most of what we do is be the IT department of our clients. So we have to look at both sides. One is prevention, do as much as we can to prevent, and then keep things in place so when something does happen, how do you recover as best you can from that? A quick analogy, everybody drives a car, we have a spare tire, but we also do maintenance and make sure we replace the tires before they wear out so that we don't have a flat on the road. But when it does happen, we do have a way to recover from that. I'll give you a business example. One of our clients in a construction company, infrastructure, they do projects nationwide. One of their salespeople left, and they suspected that IP as well as customer prospect information was stolen from them, from the client. So what we were able to do, because we did some things before in the prevention stage, where the data and the databases were kept in a way where we were logging them, we were tracking them. So when this incident happened, we were able to deliver very useful activity logs to the forensics people so that they could actually find out what happened and save the IP and stuff. So as a business owner, you have to look at both. You have to look at everything you can do to prevent, but also take care of how you recover from an incident.
Okay. All right, so following up, if a business owner has a limited budget, what's the single most impactful technology investment they can make? 30 seconds.
So data management is become a big problem for most small businesses because they have so many free services on the cloud where you can stash your data. And when that happens and you're using flex teams, you're hiring people on a contract basis, you're giving them access to all of that. The investment is not so much as a solution, but it's more of an aptitude and an attitude, is that you really want to control your data. You want to make sure that you have all the data in one place, that is secure, that's backed up. You have strong controls about who has access to it, making sure that if you're giving somebody access, it's temporary access, and it's automatically revoked, things like that. So having those controls and having a real strong protection over your data, I think is definitely.
Thank you. Okay, so Rick, following up, how do attackers exploit weak configurations to make business email compromise or hijacking more effective?
Yeah, so you're gonna hear me continue to harp on that the Microsoft default and the Google Workspace default being logged in for excessive periods of time, just because that really is the way that these guys persist in your accounts. So when you use that keep me logged in button that you get after you log in the first time and then never see again for 90 days, that's the impact of that keep me logged in button, among other things. So that's really how they persist for a long time.
Okay. Jason, are there compliance frameworks that force small business owners to address the risk, let's say, right away?
Depending on the industry. I'll talk a little bit more about this, but I see compliance three different ways. You have your regulated industries where compliance is mandated. That's typically your healthcare, finance, defense contracting, a few others. There's also compliance, what I call assurance-driven businesses, and that really stems more for companies doing due diligence the way that they should. So they're mandating that you're able to prove a certain level of security before they do business with you, because according to Gartner's research, 45% of the breaches in 2024 happened somewhere in the supply chain. So you really have to pay attention on who you're doing business with, if they're gonna have access to your systems. And really the third and final compliance is not mandated by the government or your peers or customers. It's just you wanting to be better. There's a lot of best practice frameworks out there that you can align your security posture to, that will make you more secure and ultimately more resilient to all the threats that we're talking about today.
Awesome, thank you. All right, I'm gonna put you on the hot seat because they were not prepared for this one. But Rick, is it fair to say that when someone in this room may go and purchase, say, a new router or a new firewall, either from their office or for a home, that it comes with a set of defaults of logins and passwords? Is it also fair that the hackers and those people that work in the industry know what they are?
So I want to share a story here. This was years ago. What I'm about to tell you is totally illegal to do today. But, we used to do a lot of work for school districts down all over the country, and my techs, myself, we used to stay in these little motels in small towns and stuff. And the fun thing that we used to do was hack into the Wi-Fi networks. Because we could, what the router IP address is. You can bring up the web page, so you know the brand, you know the model, you know everything about the router. And if they haven't changed the default password, you just use that and you get right in.
All right, I'm gonna follow that up with another hotel thing. You put me on the hook, so this is your fault. So, if you didn't know it, don't use hotel safes, okay? Because you go in, next time you're at a hotel, look up the make and model of that safe, go look it up online and ask what the default setting is for the admin for that safe, and you'll be able to follow directions, put in your random code, shut it, lock it, you'll be able to open it, not a problem.
All right, man, that just got scary. Yeah. Now I'm getting nervous. All right, moving on to Jason. So compliance and certification. So for many business owners, and I can attest to this, compliance just feels like a lot of paperwork. Why does it matter versus avoiding fines? And can you speak to it, you alluded a little bit earlier, can you speak to it a little bit more about cyber insurance?
Yeah, well, first, it is a lot of paperwork. That's 100% correct. And again, compliance could be driven by regulatory requirements, again, from government agencies. It could be mandated from your clients. But at the end of the day, it is important. And one of the reasons to go through an exercise and comply to some type of framework, even if it's a best practice framework, again, to my point earlier, it does build certain resilience, but it also makes you realize that being compliant and building a cybersecurity program within your business is not just the IT guy's problem. And that's one of the biggest things that we see is senior leaders, business owners, C-suite board of directors, there's cyber risk. Oh, okay, here, IT guy, that's your problem. And it's not the case. There's legal ramifications to cyber risk. There's HR, personnel security, senior leaders. We were telling stories about these ransomware attacks. Do you, as the owner or CFO, CEO, do you know what to do during a ransomware outbreak? Do you know what your responsibility is? How are you going to protect your company's reputation? Who's doing the PR side? Who's doing the insurance side? Who's doing the HR side? That's not an IT person's responsibility. They wouldn't know how to do it to begin with. So when you go through compliance, you're making yourself better, and you're understanding, all of these different moving parts to digital risk. Like, I've looked at contracts. Again, I'm not a lawyer nor an insurance agent, but a lot of people don't realize there's a lot of cyber requirements in contracts when it comes to breach notification windows, when it comes to minimum amounts of insurance that you have to carry, to be within the guardrails of that contract. Because the last thing you want to happen is if you cause a breach, not only are you dealing with your own breach, you're dealing with the insurance, now you're dealing with potential lawsuits from your customers because now you're under breach of contract in addition to everything else. So again, that's the compliance piece, again, learning and I guess understanding everyone, because these guys will tell you, digital risk, cybersecurity, it's a top-down function. And you really have to have buy-in from leadership to understand really how everything flows, and everyone has to move in concert inside the organization to really reduce that likelihood and impact of an incident. And it's the only way that you reduce that financial number. And we do a lot of financial forecasting for businesses to understand how to quantify cyber risk into dollars, to know based on your industry, your size, your revenue, your posture, both on the security side and a IT side, your financial impact during a ransomware event may be $3.2 million. How do you offset that? You can reduce that number by enhancing safeguards, by working with people like us. But there's going to be a certain point where you may be out of budget, but there's still residual risk. There'll always be residual risk. And if you say your financial liability could reduce from 3.2 down to 2.5 million, then you need to ensure that you have at least 2.5 million in cyber insurance. And so having insurance is key. Having the right policy is even more imperative, because there's some staggering statistics out there of claims being denied for a bunch of various reasons, and people are left with hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars in financial impact that the insurance claim won't cover because the policy's not aligned to the business operations. So there's areas of risk that remain exposed, and healthcare is one of the worst. So compliance, insurance, it's all part of just a grand effort to be resilient, because you don't want to be the 60% statistic. So again, if you like your business, if your business is what gives you your livelihood, your staff, their livelihood. There's a lot of people impacted by these organizations that we build and that we run, and to think that one simple click of a mouse can take it all away. You should pay attention.
Very good point. All right, for a 20-person company, where do they start? I mean, are there certifications an organization that size should go
Yeah, I think the place to start is obviously have a conversation, you know, with a risk expert to kind of understand the landscape of your business and what you need to do. Because if you're in a regulated industry, there's things that you have to do, so you start there. If not, there's other ways, again, you know, doing things like SOC 2 compliance. Some of you may have heard of that, ISO 27001. You know, those are the kind of two standards for due diligence that customers seem to ask, you know, vendors. So the place to start is just to have a conversation. Every business is different, leadership style is different, staff is different, data is different. So it just takes getting started.
Okay, and I think it's fair to say that an easy way out is to call up an insurance agent, say, I need $5 million worth of cyber insurance and think you're covered. But I think what we've heard is, and I've been on that telephone before, their policy also dictates what areas of compliance they're assuming you're following. And if you're not, that policy will not pay off, or it'll be a partial policy. There's another thing. Your contracts with your customers, many of them may require you to report if there is a data breach. If so, very large liability, up to the point of they can take your company. So, I mean, the risk on this compliance side is not just paperwork, it's alignment of so many of the insurances, the compliance, the actual processes that you have in place. So, all right, staying with that, real quick, CV. Do you see compliance driving upgrades, or do businesses become complacent when they say, we've done our compliance and, you know, we're good for the next 5 years?
Low risk and prepared. We frame governance as know your critical assets, protect them, and be able to prove you did it. That protects your revenue, the valuation of your company, and keeps you in business. Compliance is how you demonstrate discipline. It is not a tax, it is actually a multiplier.
Okay, thank you. All right, moving on, fleet. Many small businesses, and I've seen it as well, treat cybersecurity, and Jason alluded to it a little bit earlier as well, that is an IT issue. Why should owners and boards, it's a key point, see it as a governance and strategy issue? 5 minutes.
So cybersecurity is actually a business risk. We always talk about business risk. We don't talk about cybersecurity ourselves. And that means that it's not an IT task. For decades, a lot of us in leadership thought that cybersecurity was just a problem for the IT department. Like making sure the Wi-Fi is correctly connected, that the firewall is programmed, and maybe make sure that your printer is actually working. Well, that's pretty dangerous and outdated view. Cybersecurity is not an IT issue. Think of it like if you had a factory and the owner thinking a major machine failure is just a maintenance problem. It is not. It's actually a production problem, it's a revenue issue, and it's a safety challenge. It's exactly the same for cybersecurity. A significant breach isn't just a computer problem, it's a fundamental business risk that is back 3 things that you as owners, leadership, or board members care the most about. Money. A ransomware attack doesn't just stop you from, it actually stops you from sending invoices, paying bills, and making sales. What else do you have in your budget, in your business at that point? When a business email compromise attack and drain your bank account in minutes, the financial impact is not theoretical. It's life-threatening. Once again, the 60% companies fall within 6 months for one good reason. It usually takes 20 business days for an SMB to recover from a major breach. If you put it together, that means that if you don't have 1 month, sorry, of cash in your bank or access to a line of credit to be able to cover not only for your expenses, remember, for 1 month, you're just not making money. And you have to pay for all the IT, reshaping your IT with all the new environment. So it also a reputational impact, and that's very important because your business actually relies on your reputation. And rebuilding is incredibly difficult and very expensive. So IT job is to make the organizational efficient, manage the technical controls and the firewalls and software. But the board, the leadership, the owner's job is governance. And that means deciding how much risk the company is willing to take to achieve these goals. That doesn't mean you eliminate all the risk. You identify your risk. That's exactly what we presented to you before. So you have to have a strategic conversation, not a technical one, the type of discussion that we do have with our clients.
Okay, so quick question then. What's a practical way that a business owner can embed cybersecurity into their strategy without overcomplicating things? 30 seconds.
Well, as I just mentioned, it's not about protecting everything. It's about keeping the business alive. That's our main goal. When we come with a client, we want to make sure that if something happens, they can stay afloat. So the step one, I mentioned it, I'm going to repeat it because I used to be a professor at university, so I know I have to repeat things. It's all about the crown jewels. Identify what is really key for you in terms of systems or data sets, that if they're stolen, blocked, or whatever, can just stop you from working. It could be your customer list, could be your designs, could be your financial, could be the systems that you rely on for your operations. But figure it out. And figure, as we said, the financial impact about that. How long, when does it start hitting your EBITDA? Then you have to protect those crown jewels that you just identified. And that has to be done at the executive levels during executive meetings. This is not an IT stuff. We're talking about what is the livelihood of the business.
All right, I'm going to interrupt real quick. We got a little bit more than we want to get to Q&A pretty quick, so
Okay.
apologies. All right, Rick, how does governance influence how companies respond to the business email compromise and hijacking?
Well, whether or not you stick a governance label on it, any action that you take that improves your cybersecurity posture, like addressing those hacker-friendly defaults, falls in the category of good governance. In fact, that's a step along the way. We would call it hardening your authentication process. So that's a good first step toward achieving compliance with a new Texas law that went into effect in September, Senate Bill 2610. One of the best pieces of legislation I've seen, which for Texas small business owners provides safe harbor from punitive lawsuits if they follow basic cybersecurity governance practices.
Thank you. All right, Jason, real quick. How can leadership use compliance as a tool to strengthen their overall strategy?
It's a good question. I think for the regulated industries, it's just staying stable, following the rules so you don't incur any type of compliance penalties. The ones that are more driven through due diligence and supply chain, I work with a lot of companies to do things like SOC 2 and ISO engagements proactively, because of the amount of due diligence and third-party risk management that's happening, you can almost use that as a growth tool. I hate to say it, but some do it almost as a marketing play to be able to get your business out there in front of the customers that you really want to say, hey, look at me, I take security seriously, and if you do business with us, you can rest assured that we're gonna, protect your data accordingly.
Thank you. Okay, we're gonna move into a very quick lightning round. All right, 30 seconds for each of you. Rick, we're gonna start with you, and here's the question. What's one practical takeaway that business owners can take and start implementing tomorrow? Go.
Other than logging out of your Microsoft and Google accounts every Friday, you really need to get ransomware resistant backups. You can Google that, or go to your favorite AI and look that up for either Microsoft or Google Workspace. It'll give you options, or again, you could see one of us.
Excellent. CV?
All right. Like we have up on the slide, the breaches happen with the gaps. I had dealt with this situation with a client just yesterday about this. Email compromise was happening. There were 3-4 different people involved. This is a securities firm member. And none of us were looking at this particular area to make sure that it was taken care of. And we were all kind of caught off guard. But the fact that we discovered it, because there was some suspicious email that was going on, and we took care of that. So all that to say, having an audit done, having one of us come take a look at your systems and find the gaps, that is the first step, is to then reduce the risk of right.
Thank you.
All right.
Jason?
Yes, so this is a fun takeaway. So the average ransom today is almost $500,000. The average recovery cost outside of a ransom for small businesses is roughly $1.2 million. Why is the ransom so high? Because you're giving the bad actors exactly the information they need to know what to charge you. I can almost bet everybody in this room somewhere on your IT systems is a copy of your cyber insurance policy, if you have it, and probably a copy of your P&L. They know exactly what you're worth, and they use that to their leverage.
Yes.
So I would definitely take those, encrypt them, or remove them from your IT systems, so that way if the bad actors do get in, they don't know how to leverage your financials.
And I can tell you, if you're a victim of a ransomware attack, the first may be, we want $500,000 in Bitcoin. But guess what happens when you pay it? Because you don't have a choice. They know you got money. Next one may be $1 million. And depending on what hackers they are, they will suck every penny out of you to your bankrupt and will never send you the decrypt keys. So that's real life about what will happen if you get a pure ransomware attack. Philippe, wrap us up.
Well, actually, you're right. Sometimes they even give you the decryption key, but statistically, 20% of the cases, they're coming back. So for me, the best thing you can do is sit on your leadership meeting, the next one you have, and identify those crown jewels. Believe me, it is not easy, because you really have to pick what is the crucial thing you cannot live with. And usually, both of us, we run pretty deep spreadsheets to figure that out. So really, before buying any other tools or whatever, figure out what you have to protect, because that's how you're going to define what you need to put in place to protect it. And finally, I have a few spare books, so if some of you are interested, that I can share one with you.
Okay, good, thank you. All right, everybody's like, finally. All right, this was our presentation. Questions? Let's see if we can get some. Man, all right. We'll start on this side and head over to Lucky.
Okay, not my current company, but the previous one, I had a lot of employees in the field with computers, and they love to let Google remember their passwords. Good or bad?
I'll do that one. Do you really want to trust a search engine company to protect your passwords? I'll just put that out
So
there.
I was correct to yell at them for it.
Yes, you were, but the
Well, not
company
really.
should have provided some kind of a password management or vault solution for them to use.
But not Google's, not the Gmail,
Not
not the
Google's.
Google, okay.
Something like 1Password or another enterprise level solution.
Okay.
Perfect. All right, next question. John, was that all right, Lucky? You good?
Yeah, I'm good.
All right, John.
My question is similar to Lucky's, but every company in this room has a whole bunch of employees working from home, working off of their smartphones in the field, and the leadership teams of all these companies are also doing the same thing. They have their home computers, they have their car, they have their phone. What addresses all of those devices over which you have no control that are out in the field running stuff?
I'm just in the middle of it with one of our clients, and we've installed a secure browser. So the only thing they have to install on their BYOD device, bring your own device, is a browser which runs exactly like Chrome, but it's totally secured, and all the applications that the employees need to access for their work only work through that browser. The rest, they can run any browser they want, do whatever they want.
Is that a virtual tunnel back into a
Exactly,
place?
yeah. And it avoids all the VPNs and all the challenges that we have nowadays.
Okay. Rick, you got a comment?
Yeah, in absence of that, both Google Workspace and Microsoft have controls that are available to limit what you can and can't do from the devices and what can and can't be stored.
So, I go back to what I was saying about data management, data control. So what Felipe was talking about is that it is controlling the access to the data and where the data lives. Now, that takes some infrastructure work, it takes some planning and doing. But password management is what Rick mentioned about using something like 1Password is very, very powerful. We've been hearing for over a decade now that we have to use strong passwords, we have to keep passwords unique, not make them humanly readable and so forth. See, that's why we have these password compromises, because we don't have a system to implement that. And something like 1Password will get you there. With 1Password, it generates the passwords for you, it saves them for you, it autofills them, you never have to even know what your passwords are. And if you manage that centrally to your whole team, whether they're using your personal devices or whatever, you have control over those passwords. And they don't have to keep those systems logged in, like what Rick was saying you should. Yeah.
Have you want to have a little fun trip when you get back to the office? Walk around everybody's office desks or cubes, just casually glance down and see what they have written on the sticky notes. Right? Odds pretty good. It's going to be it'll be a password. So, all right, other
Or
questions?
there's always an Excel spreadsheet somewhere that has.
Well, there's that. Yes, yes, sir.
Just two situations that I'm going to ask you if we have any legal, if I would have any legal responsibility to report it. So my company's not SOC 2 compliant, and occasionally I'll be bidding against somebody who's SOC 2 compliant. They get the business, and then they end up outsourcing half of it to me. And in the classic example of SOC 2 compliant, they take the Pac-10 university's database and email the entire thing to me unencrypted. So they're SOC 2 compliant, but they're just dueling the out. So that example, another example, at least once a year, I have a client mail me an entire database, 100,000 plus records complete with social security numbers, on and on and on. Now, what are my legal responsibilities to that, or do I have any?
Well, your responsibility is when the fact that they sent something is not your responsibility. Once it's within your system, you should definitely encrypt it and know where it is. And as Jason mentioned earlier, you should really consider being SOC 2 certified. I had a lot of clients that told me, hey, it's actually on the salespeople telling me that I need to be SOC 2 compliant.
Is that good?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So, thanks very much for doing this, but you guys make retirement look good. But with respect to,
About selling your business.
That's right, man, stay tuned, we got one about selling your business coming up.
okay, I'll beat it. When AI is at, I think, or just all these email programs, I spend 30 minutes a day deleting emails. And my question is, if you hit any of the options like in Google or on my Apple phone or any of those and say unsubscribe, are you confirming your data? Is it worse to try and unsubscribe versus?
Yeah, I'll shortcut that. Do not unsubscribe, right? Unless you subscribe to it and you know you did. Because all you're doing is confirming, and the minute you do the first one, you just hit 100,000 lists out there. So yeah, don't do it. But AI,
Yeah, oh, go ahead.
I was
gonna
surprised I
bring that
haven't
up.
heard anything
so
about AI.
you need to read, okay, you're gonna hate me, but you need to read privacy policies, right? And if you're using an AI for free, you're giving your data away for free.
Yeah, and I'll jump in. I know that's kind of one of the elephants we haven't talked about. We could do a whole other panel just on AI, but just so you guys are aware, you know, ransomware, we talked a lot about that today, business email compromise, they are number one and number two when it comes to financial loss, but I think this past year, AI data leakage is about to take over the number one spot. So we've talked about governance a lot up here as well. So understanding, having an AI governance strategy, understanding AI risk, understanding what your employees are doing. Are they uploading your company information into their free ChatGPT account that's tied to their Gmail? Probably. It makes their life easier, right? But how are you controlling that? Do you even know that it's happening? You know, so there's a lot of things to be concerned about AI. So just keep that
All right.
in mind.
So we're gonna wrap up, because we want people to have a little bit of time, and I know David's got some more things. So real quick, just takeaways that we captured, wanted you to see here. One from the threat side: don't ignore the business email compromise and hijacking. Check your defaults. Okay. Infrastructure: build resilience that protects your business proactively, especially against disaster recovery. That goes back to my story I told you earlier. Compliance, not just paperwork. It builds trust and opens a lot of doors. And then finally, governance. Cybersecurity is a leadership issue, not just an IT issue. Please join me in thanking our panelists. And they'll be around. If you got any questions, want to dive in a little bit deeper, I do believe that the presentation, I know from our perspective, the presentation will be available to you if you'd like to see or get a copy of it. And again, thank you very much, David.
I actually had another question.
Man, you raised your, David's over here like, and I'm thinking, let's wrap this thing up, man. You got 1 minute to go, and yet he had it. Fire away, man. What's your question?
My question is that there are all these, there's some very significant public companies that are in the cybersecurity business, Palo Alto, Zscaler, Rubrik. Are those, do they have software that these businesses should be using to protect their system?
I can answer that one.
Can you repeat the question so we can all?
So the question is, you have these major big companies that have software to deliver cybersecurity. David, if I'm going to paraphrase, is that a one-stop solution? Is that kind of what you're asking?
Well, is that software applicable for these companies?
So is that software applicable to all businesses of all types? So cybersecurity is not there's no silver bullet, and there's no, one solution that fits all. Let's look at, how you protect a physical building. Okay, so you have locks, and then you also have alarms. And you have, depending on what the value of the building is, the way a bank is protected is very different than how a home is protected. So, and you may have locks, you may have alarm systems, you may still have a security guard who's monitoring and walking around. So, it's a layered approach because go back to the slide, it's the gaps that the bad guys look for. And one solution does not fill all the gaps. And so you have to look at where the gaps are, and address each one of those. And that's how it's effective.
I think one, he reminded me of one quick one, and then, again, if you want to, while I'm gonna wrap this up in 30 seconds, but it was practical. If you want to take pictures or reach out and contact and stuff here as well. One thing to remember too, when that ransomware attack happened with the company we were with, it was by someone in their accounts receivable department. It was a clerk that received an email. The name on the email had a client name and said, I've got a lot of questions on my invoice. I've written them there, please take a look and let me know what you think. And the second that they opened it, it infected. Now the thing is, when this happens, a lot of times they have timers. So it's not that it immediately affects one. This will spread through your whole network, and it has a timer behind the scenes. And then when that timer goes off, is when all of them hit at the same time, decrypt your hard drive, and you'll get a little thing up on the screen that says, hey, if you want the decrypt keys, press enter. They literally it's a billion-dollar industry, multi-billions. They have call centers set up to instruct you how to purchase Bitcoin, how to transfer the money, and they're very nice, they're professionally trained. It's like calling customer service today. And they will walk you through the process a certain percent amount of time. And then after that, they're done. What you can tell your staff, the name may say Don Baird, but the actual email address itself will be something typically that's totally unrecognizable and has nothing to do with Don. So have them check the email address.
Rich, I just want to say, John and I had a friend many years ago, and we're still a roundtable, whose IT director hijacked his data architectural firm until he got a raise, okay, or bonus, and shut down the company. I think for about a week or so, right?
I'll claim,
Yeah, it was crazy. Anyway, you gotta be careful about that too, you know?
Yeah. All right,
One
thank you guys.
last scary thought on that.
Yeah.
By the way, it's illegal. It's a felony to pay most of these ransoms. If they're in any Russia or, yes, it's felony to pay, because most of these countries that these threat actors are coming from, like Russia or North Korea, are on the sanctioned list. So if you send money there, you're breaking federal law.
Well, that was a nice way to wrap up the meeting. I mean,